Welcome back to Europe Now. You find us in Bratislava, which was the capital of Hungary for 3 centuries, between the 15 and 1800s. It is now, of course, the capital of Slovakia. Well, a lot has happened here in the last 25 years since the so-called Velvet Divorce that separated Slovakia from the Czech Republic. In 2004, Slovakia joined the European Union and NATO. In 2007, Schengen, and in 2009, the euro currency. Slovakia is the smallest member of the Visegrad group of states and, like its Visegrad neighbours, has got into hot water with the EU over its refusal to take in migrants under a quota system. More recently, Slovakia has been rocked after the murder of an investigative journalist specialising in corruption cases and his fiancée. The biggest protest since the fall of communism brought about the fall of the Prime Minister and a government reshuffle. Adeline Percept has this report.
An absence speaks volumes in this Slovakian press office. Journalist Jan Kuciak was investigating links between the mafia and former Prime Minister Robert Fico's government. On February 21st, he was murdered. Jan's colleague Martin says being a journalist in Slovakia is increasingly risky.
People are afraid a lot to speak to journalists because of the climate in our country. When you uncover something, when you speak about something, there's probably a punishment waiting for you if you stop somebody's business, and so not a lot of people are or were willing to talk to journalists.
The killings of the 27-year-old reporter and his fiancée sparked the biggest protests since the fall of communism.
I hope my generation, the post-November 89 generation, is going to change things, because if it's not us, then who else? I mean, our parents, they fought the Velvet Revolution, they fought for our freedom. I think that we sort of owe them the victory over corruption.
According to Transparency International, Slovakia is the 5th most corrupt country in Europe and the 54th in the world.
Corruption in Slovakia is beyond imagination of a Western audience. Enough is enough. We don't want this. We don't want Kazakhstan. We don't want Russian type of doing politics. Killing journalists, it's a little bit like killing yourself, you know, because he was the one who served you.
Jan Kuciak's final investigation was found to reveal links between the Italian mafia and members of Robert Fico's government. The Prime Minister gave a public response.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is €1 million. This sum will be awarded to anyone with the courage to provide useful information to the police on the culprit of this crime.
Political pressure over the incident eventually forced Fico, the culture and interior ministers, and the head of the national police to step down. Despite the wave of departures, Fico remains head of the ruling Smer party, which for some is preferable to populist opposition.
If the opposition takes power, Slovakia will no longer look to the West. Look at what's happening in Poland and Hungary. I fear Slovak opposition parties would lead us down the same path.
While some have called for snap elections, others look to the European Union for guidance. In early May, the European Parliament adopted a resolution calling for increased efforts to protect press freedom in EU states.
Well, we are in central Bratislava, and as you can see, people continuing to remember Jan and Martina. I'm with one of the people who's been organising the protests that have been going on since their murders. Karolina Farska, thanks for meeting with us.
Nice to meet you.
Now, I know you were protesting against corruption a long time before these murders. You're continuing to lead the protests. Why are you yourself protesting?
I want to see a country where I want to live in and where I want to have a family once, and where something like this is not happening. And the crime that happened on February, the murder of the investigative journalist, that it won't happen ever again. So I think that I feel their responsibility to do that.
You're still at high school, you're making some big demands on the government. I understand that doesn't include early elections because you think that would waste time. What concretely do you want?
Our main requirement from the beginning was that we need here an objective and also independent investigation of the murder of Jan and Martina. And for this, we need here a police in which we can trust. And this is going to our Polish president, in which there are big doubts. And people are doubting if this investigation could happen like it should. And because of that, we need here a new Polish president. Also, we need here a new way of choosing Polish president, because right now it's just fully political, because Ministry of the Interior Affairs is choosing them just based on his interests.
Well, Karolina Farska, thank you so much for speaking to us on Europe Now.
Thank you.
Come down now to the Danube River that runs through Bratislava to meet MEP Ivan Stefanec. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, nice to meet you.
And we just met one of the protest organisers, Karolina Farska. She told us it's important to her that European politicians are paying attention to what's going on here. You took part in those protests, didn't you?
Yes, the message is that we don't want to have corrupted government and we need to change public affairs.
It is a young country, and it seems to me, from an outside point of view, to be at a country that's at a crossroads.
That's absolutely right. We are on the crossroads, and now we decide about the future. We decide whether we will live in the country where democratic rules are applied, or in the country with totalitarian regimes and mafia practices. And I think it's important that young people are saying that. It says that country is still young, but adult.
Now, I know that trust in European institutions is particularly strong here in Slovakia. Do you believe that Europe can have a strong role here?
European Parliament has sent a so-called fact-finding mission to Slovakia, which helped a lot, for example, in pushing international investigative team in order to investigate this murder. And also we had a debate, we will have a resolution in the parliament, and also at the special Tax 3 committee we will focus our work on the investigation of tax fraud scandals which Jan Kuciak worked on.
Some critics, though, are saying the EU has pretty much turned a blind eye to a lot of the corruption that's been going on in Slovakia. Do you think that's true, and how dangerous do you think that is?
Unfortunately, there were some scandals which were only under investigation of the Slovak authorities, and people have a lot of doubts about this investigation because it is not finished. So yes, European institutions can be more active, particularly our budget committee, CONT, which is dealing with basically with all the issues how European money is spent in Slovakia, but also Olaf, as the control unit of European Commission, can be more active.
Ivan Stefanec, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, as we've said, Slovakia, a relatively young country and one of the newer members of the European Union. Our reporters have been taking a closer look at what Slovakia's place is in the Europe of today.
A relaxed atmosphere at this private bilingual high school in Bratislava. But these students are part of Slovakia's future. 20-year-old Veronika is one of them. But she wants to leave the country and study politics in the United Kingdom.
You don't have possibilities here when you compare it to other countries. At least like Vienna, which is 1 hour from here, and you have far more possibilities what to do in your free time, in your work life, in your studies, everything.
Leaving makes economic sense. The average wage is less than €1,000 a month. But Veronika does want to contribute to her country's future.
I'm going to go out and I will see how it's functioning somewhere else. Then if I come back and try to make it here better by what I saw.
At the other end of that journey is Boglarka. She spent the past decade studying and working around the world. She came back last year and works for the Ministry of the Environment. In the past 15 years, over 300,000 Slovaks have left the country. And that brain drain is a cause for concern.
I'm worried that they might never come back. It's alarming that they see this opportunity as one way out. They feel that everything abroad in the more Western world is shinier, is brighter, is tastier, and might be better.
Dissatisfaction with the status quo helped transform anger at the killing of Jan Kuciak into mass protests that pushed out the Prime Minister. But after 3 months, the movement risks running out of steam.
Okay, this is a petition for the election to happen earlier than it should.
You cannot keep the energy of people forever. So, and I feel like it's the plan of the politicians, you know, they feel like it will somehow fade away. And it looks like it's really happening, so.
3 months on from the killings, little progress has been made in the investigation. And while the Prime Minister has stepped aside, no elections are planned until 2020, despite the public anger.
We've come back to the old streets of Bratislava, the capital. I'm here to meet a member of the Most Híd party, which is part of the ruling coalition. Hello, Jozsef. Nagy.
Hello, nice
to meet you. First question then, about the situation here in Slovakia. The Prime Minister of Slovakia has gone. The government has been reshuffled. The government does seem to be admitting or agreeing that the protesters here have a point.
This uncovered how deep connections are between the Minister of Interior, some people, to mafia and to problematic things which were investigated by these journalists. So this murder get political content, and that's why our party went to withdraw from the government, and we were ready also to make early elections.
Well, the protesters called for early elections. Why aren't they happening?
We succeeded to resign the Prime Minister, resign the whole government, and have a possibility in the parliament to create a new government, okay, with the same parties but with other people. On one hand side, on the other hand side, the polls, international polls as well, showed that the new early elections would not bring a better, only new situation. Showed that the ruling government party, the biggest party, really would lose 10%, for example, but who gained this percentage is the new fascist party of Kotleba and the anti-systematic party of Kolar and the Eurosceptic party of SES. So if it would happen, I think it would be not a better situation, only other situation.
Obviously, some protesters are a little sceptical. They say it's the same people in different jobs. They want to see things like a very independent police and more accountability for politicians.
I understand people, my children, 3 of my children used to go to the streets, and I like it that they want to change something, and they are now learning the democracy. I have to know that in Slovakia, after 25 years, these were the real first strong protests. And but these people have not yet enough realistic information that what really is possible to do, what really is possible to change. And don't forget that 1% of the nation is on the street, but 99% of the voters are at home, and they are not in the same thinking.
The EU obviously very interested in what's happening in Slovakia in terms of democracy, rule of law, but also because it's in many cases EU funds that are being corruptly acquired by criminals. What role do you want the EU to play in this?
I believe very much in the European Prosecutor Office. I'm waiting very much what time we'll start. What is maybe a failure, the local prosecutors of the European Prosecutor's Office would be voted at home. It is not so much objective, but it is not the deal of Slovakia, but the whole member states.
All right, well, Jozsef, Nagy, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
We've come now to the eastern border of Slovakia, where it meets Austria, across these 2 rivers. I'm in the company of MEP Branislav Skripek. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, you're with the Ordinary People and Independent Personalities Party and the ECPM in Europe.
European Christian Political Movement in European Parliament, yes.
Well, thanks for being with us. Now, where we're standing right now, 30 years ago, this was essentially part of the Iron Curtain. Can you tell us what it was like?
It's in fact that we had a real Iron Curtain, and there was a number of people who tried to trespass this place, but within these 50 years of between 48 and 1990, approximately 400 people were killed at the attempt to get to the freedom.
But let's walk along this border, which is now an invisible border. There has been talk recently, especially with the migration crisis, of Slovakia closing its borders once again. Is that realistic?
Of course not in reality. Some politicians have misused it very populistically for their election campaigns that they won. Fact is that there is no thousands of migrants who are trying to get into Slovakia.
Now, in the rest of our programme, we've been talking about longer-standing problems in Slovakia, particularly corruption. What do you believe needs to change?
I'm very sorry to say that we are so childish democracy. I'm very sorry to say that. We have a great number of politicians from 1990. So it's almost 30 years, they are still there, they are still the same faces, but what they got used to is a use of the power, which brings great opportunities to get money and steal it from national budget.
You don't necessarily sound very optimistic about Slovakia. It's 25 years since the Velvet divorce and Slovakia became an independent nation. Are you hopeful for Slovakia in 25 years' time?
What is needed in following 25 years is a development of an understanding of a citizen and NGOs and new political parties that we should bring much more transparency, much more ideals, much more honesty, much more responsibility toward the nation, history and citizens to be a good people who guide the society fairly and justly.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your thoughts, Branislav Skripek. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching as well this programme from here in Slovakia and also in Hungary. We hope to see you again very soon for another edition of Europe Now on France 24.